Hi, I'm Wayne Johns. Thanks for joining us on our Team Bowens lighting tutorial. In this video, we'll be demonstrating how to open up our thinking process when it comes to lighting and how we can get creative with what can be considered as a basic light shaper, the softbox. We'll be showing you how you can light a beauty shoot using alternative light shapers other than the industry standard beauty dish. In this setup, I'll be using a Bowens Gemini 500R head with a 60cm by 80cm Lumiere softbox. This will be supported on a high glide system, which will be up above the model, pointing slightly down, and that way it keeps any stands out of the way from the shot. Next, I'll be bringing in my fill, and for this I'm going to use a reflector. We'll be showing you the differences between the white, the silver, and the gold finish, and how that affects your shot. To complete this setup, I'm going to replace the reflector with a Bowens 400 RX head and another Lumiere 60cm by 80cm softbox, and that completes our clamshell lighting technique. Our challenges here when using our key light and a reflector as a fill are getting the reflector at the right height and the right angle to provide enough fill light to our model. When we replace our reflector with a fill light, the challenge would be to get our exposures correct. If we have the exposures set the same on both lights, the lighting will become very flat. Now that that's all in place, let's go and take a look. So now that my key light is in place, let's just go through some details about its height and its distance. So I'm still using a Bowens Gemini 500R head with the Lumiere 60cm by 80cm softbox. Now in terms of its height, I've got the bottom edge of my softbox just in line with the model's eyes, maybe a fraction just above. The reason for that, at that height, it's still going to give my model a lovely little catch light in her eyes. The angle of my softbox is around 45 degrees, and the reason for that is that I don't want the main part of my softbox light in my model's face because it's too bright, so I'm having the softer edge of light fall on her face and a softer feather of light down across the body. In terms of distance to my model, it's just past the length of my model's arms if you were to outstretch them. Now you've got to remember, my softbox is also giving me my fill light for my background, and this can change depending on the distance you have between the two. So if you wanted your background to be a little bit lighter, you can bring your softbox and model closer to your background, but if you wanted your background to go a little bit darker, just move the two of them a little bit further away, and that should do the trick. So here we are, we've now got our key light in place, and you can see because of the angle it gives us a lovely soft light, and it's giving us a lovely light fall off, but falling into shadow quite quickly on the bottom, so a very short light fall off. So I've just put my fill reflector in place, and what this is going to do for our shot is going to take any residual light from my key light from my softbox, which is angled downwards, and it's going to hit the surface of our reflector and bounce that back into the model. So it's going to help lift all these dark shadow areas on the bottom of the frame. Because of its angle, it's also going to help lift some of the shadow areas just under the chin and around the neck area so they don't look too harsh. The important thing to remember here is the height of your reflector. Now because in camera I'm cropping down almost to the model's waist and she's in a seated position, I've been able to rest my reflector on her lap just to help out a little bit. Now if I was cropping into my model for more of a head and shoulders shot, it means I could lift my reflector a little bit higher, even it out a little bit and make it level, and give a softer fill of light to give me a gradual tonal range around the face. Now these reflectors for this demonstration come in three colours. That's a gold, a silver and a white. So now that we've got it in place, let's get some shots going and see how each one can affect your overall shot. now put our fill reflector in place, and you can see that's just bounced a little bit of light back into the model. This is a white reflector, so it's just giving us a very gentle bounce back of reflection in the lower area of the model. Still quite dark, but just pulling out those shadow areas just a little bit. So just changed my white reflector to a silver reflector just so you can see the difference, and you can see already this is punching a little bit more highlight back into the lower end of the scene, and it's lifting the shadow areas quite a lot more. So a lot more of a crisper light as well, but we're still quite dark in some areas because we've only got one main light source still. So I've just replaced my silver reflector with a gold reflector as a fill. Now even though it's not filling in the shadow areas very much because of the distance of my key light, what you can see that it's added a little bit of a warm tone to the skin of my model. So to complete our simple beauty lighting setup, I've now replaced my fill reflector with another light, and that's going to act as my fill light. And for that I'm using a Bowens Gemini 400RX unit fitted with the same 60cm by 80cm Lumiere softbox. Now I've positioned this down on the floor, angled up slightly, and this is going to complete a clamshell lighting technique. Now what this is going to do for me is going to do the same as my reflector, but because I'm using a light source, it means I've got the option to adjust my power settings and give more light or less light as I require. Obviously with a fill reflector, it's only reflecting the light from my key light, so you're going to be a little bit limited, especially with its placement. So as you can see from here, this is now giving me a lot of fill light on the lower part of my frame and my model. It's helping lift all these shadows on the clothing in this lower region and pull out a little bit more detail in the fabric and the accessories we've got on shot. It's also lifting a lot of these shadow areas under the chin and around the face, but you've got to remember the importance here is your output ratios of your lights. If you have them pretty much the same output, because they're in a similar position and a similar distance, it means the light could look quite flat. But if you were just to reduce the power of your fill light a little bit, it gives you a nice, soft, gradual tonal range down across the body in terms of light fall off. Just be careful not to use too much power on your fill light because it can make your shot look a little bit unsightly. Now that we've got both of those in place and we can see a little bit of its effect, let's take some shots and see how it looks. So to complete our lighting setup, I've now put in our fill reflector, and that's placed just in front of the model to bounce some of that light from our key lights back into the front to lift some of those shadows. It's only a subtle change, but it's just enough to take out the darkness in those tones. So that's our tutorial for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you managed to learn something that you can take away and try for yourself. And don't forget to keep checking back for more inspirational Team Bowens lighting tutorials. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.